He's on time. We are live. Welcome in, everybody, again. Thanks for coming in. It's Mikey Wine, a.k.a. Gundamonium Works, part 6 of the Tamiya 135 scale M1A1 Abrams tank build. Finally got some paint down, as you can see. Tonight's episode is probably going to be nothing but panel line accent colors and which ones we're using, because as a build like this, hey George, what is happening, my friend? Good to see you. I'm going to talk to you later about this little guy, because I know you bought one. I saw it this morning on your screen. Anyway, I've got several colors here. I'm talking about panel lines and starting to do some of that. You can see some of the grading. These are the grates on the, like, I don't know if they're hatches or whatever, but those were done in black. But because this isn't like a Gundam build, when you build like sci-fi anime stuff, you want to really accent those panel lines. I think with something like this that looks like a modern tank, I think you just want to highlight them, not so much having such a stark contrast from the background color. So I'm thinking of doing most of these in a brown. My computer is trying to tell me that I have no viruses, which is awesome. Good. So I'm thinking about doing a brown color. I've got actually 3 different brown Tamiya accent colors here. I've got deep brown, brown, and dark brown, and then black. I did these vents, these grills in black, and then I wiped them off. So they look a lot darker on camera actually than they are in person. Oh my God, come on, PC, give me a break. Why do you do this right when I start my stream? Oh, good Lord, I can't even see my comments. There we go. Okay, so I'm looking at deep brown, and deep brown kind of has more of a reddish color to it than opposed to just the straight brown. So I'm kind of liking this one better to start. I can always go darker if it's, this is just too subtle. I can try darker. It's a lot easier to go to a darker color than a lighter one. So I'm going to leave black off the table for now, but I've got the entire turret section painted except for the inside of the hatches. The hatches have to be done in a green. I've got this number 60. This is a FLM 02. This is actually a gray. It's called gray, but it has a greenish tinge to it for interior type stuff. I've also got this number 56. This is an JN gray green. So this might work as well. So I'm going to go with one of those 2 colors for the inside of the hatches, but we'll do that a little bit later. Right now, I can mask that off and paint that. So right now I've got to start just paneling. I've got all the thermal panels on. I've got that little that spool I made last week with the photo etch. That's right here. That's mounted on the side. I've also purchased a bunch of stowage material that's going to go all over the back of this. So that's going to be delivered here in a few days. It's a bunch of resin pieces, and I can really pile that stuff on the back of this thing. So over here is the side skirts, side armor. Those are ready to go on, but I can't put those on until I put the wheels on, which I have here. So I've painted all these. Did a little touch up on a couple of them, but they're all ready to go. Nothing's been panel lined or weathered yet or anything. They're just fresh paint. And I used my my little circle stencil for each one of the wheels. I had to hollow this out a little bit to make it perfect size for those wheels. It made it really easy to paint each one. I just did the black first, and then I used the stencil and painted the tan color. By the way, this is painted with number 19 sandy brown Mr. Color. And there we go. Good to see you back. Change it up with the tank. Yes, I did, Felipe. Good to see you. I haven't seen you on here. I don't think in a long time, if ever. But if memory serves me, yeah, this is actually I had a bunch of kits out when I was trying to figure out what I was going to build next. I let everybody in the room kind of help me out and choose what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm changing up a bit, doing an armor first tank build in probably my life. I don't remember the last time I've ever done an actual modern armor kit. I did do a commission build, a Warhammer Bane blade that I did for a friend here in Washington, but that's probably the closest I've done to any kind of an armor kit. I do have a 135 scale main battle tank for Gundam. I have one of those, and I also have a 135 scale hover tank that I have in my backlog. So sooner or later, I'll get to those. Another thing that I do have to finish up, I've got these last 3 glass pieces here that I have to install into the driver's hatch and then mask those off so I can basically flat coat that, finish it, and then put the hatch on here in the front. So I still have that to do. The funny thing was I lost this. I couldn't find it for the life of me. The other day I was looking for it, and thank God for video recording, because I went back to my previous video and I looked at where it was, and it was actually on the laptop when I closed it and shut it down, and it was inside, and I never did open the laptop again. So I was looking all over my bench trying to find it and freaking out, kind of going, man, it's going to turn up, I know, eventually. What's up, Julius? What's up, man? Like, do you ever mix enamel washes or make enamel paint? Or make from enamel paint? Yes, I have done. Actually, I've done filter washes with enamels to kind of muddy up. When I made my first city diorama, that was a 144 scale. It's actually what I won. Actually, no, I won Anime Expo in 15 with it. That was my city diorama build that I made with all real grade. I mean, it had 2 real grade Zaku's and 1 real grade RX-78. And I used a filter wash with enamels and lighter fluid to muddy up those kits and make them look weathered before I flat coated them or anything like that. So I do use enamels occasionally, but some of my oils that I have, I do use oil brushers, which is another. It's like comes with it. Actually, I'll pull it out here. I'll show you real quick. These are all enamels. 1 second here while I find them. Here we go. So I bought this a little while back. This is a MIG product, and they're called oil brushers. And they're little paint, like applicator brushes with enamel paints inside. And you can use odorless thinner like this. The AK, I use the odorless thinner. This is what I use for my panel lines all the time. To do streaking. This is a kit for Starship. It's called Starship Color Set, and it comes with Starship filth, a white, and a black, like a soot kind of kit. But you can buy them individually or buy them in a set like this. This was the Starship set because I use this primarily on the Millennium Falcon, which actually has it on the image on the screen here, which is kind of funny. So that's what I used it for when I bought it, and I've used it several times on stuff like to do streaking effects and oil streaking, whether it be dirty kind of mucky, muck it up a bit. So that's what I did that for. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I do use enamels occasionally, especially when I'm doing weathering. I don't typically paint with them anymore, unless I'm doing like a little bit of hand painting or something like that. I might use an enamel to touch up something, or if I'm doing a reverse. What do you call it? Reverse. What is it called? I can't think of it right at the moment. It's reverse wash, essentially. So kind of like doing a filter wash, but when you're trying to accent a background color, you can do a reverse wash and use enamels for that. So I have done that. What I use for panel lining and for those reverse washes is these Q-tips. These are Daiso. Here's the brand. Daiso brand. They're they're cotton buds, but the blue ones are very tightly compacted, so they don't shred and fray as easily. They do eventually break down. You have to change them out, but they're really good for panel lining because they don't leave a lot of fibers and a lot of extra stuff on your kit. So when you're trying to clear coat something, you've got all these hairs that you've got to try to get rid of. Doing well, You guys are having your own conversation here. George and Julius are going at it. Doing okay. Live stream 6 Eastern time. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, George is on at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. Pacific time, 6 a.m. Eastern. So, George, I got to ask you. You bought a bug. I saw you bought a bug. Have you? I know you're getting ready to use it, and I did actually hear you talk about using it for the SDF1 build. I used this for my SDF1 build. My question to you is: are you using it for? Are you doing TV version or are you doing movie version? Just out of curiosity. And are you using the photo etch for the cruiser mode or in the transformed mode? That's what I want, because the photo etch set is made for the cruising mode. So I'm not sure how much of it will work real well, because I know the proportions are slightly different in the attack mode. So I'm wondering, which one you're going to use it for. Briefly talk about simple. It does what I need it for. There's much more elaborate ones you can buy. And one of the questions I think George was talking about this morning was, why are these all cut in different angles and stuff like that? I think primarily those cuts are for if you're doing ships and doing railings, for curving railings and stuff a certain way for doing ship builds, because they've got some kind of complex curves, compound curves, things like that. I think you can push the photo etch in and actually bend it. I think. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I like this thing. It's really well made. It's simple. I don't need much more than this. You can adjust you can turn this plate to whichever side you need if you're going to use the indent here. Turn off my camera. I just lose you guys? No. I guess we're good. Let me know if we're on. I saw my camera go black for a second. I've been having some weird glitchy issues, and I usually, when I start the stream, I bring the camera up and everything well before I start the stream, and I work these bugs out before I go, but I'm not sure why occasionally I start losing my camera or locking up. I know one stream a few weeks ago I actually lost connection. I had to come back in and restart the stream. We're all good? Okay, we're good. I'm going to keep going. So I still got to deal with the figures here. These guys, I lost a piece here. Let me grab it. Lost his arm. I got Lieutenant Dan here with no legs. And I got the other guy sitting next to him. I glued their goggles on. I glued their pistols on the sides. Those guys will go in the hatches here. And glitch, but okay, good. I saw it glitch myself, but just as long as it doesn't seize up like it did that other time. So, getting back here, yeah, I love these things. I had a friend of mine in Canada actually send me a bunch of packages of these, and so far I gave a couple to some friends, but I still have a lot of them left, but I am starting to dwindle down my supply, so I'm going to have to try to find a supplier of these Daiso ones. I tried the black ones that Daiso makes, but the black ones are really a lot better for makeup, not so much for what we do. And they're a little more they're not as tightly compacted, so they shred and fray a lot easier and leave some fibers behind, which is, again, not what we want when we're trying to do clear coats. So I'm going to just start doing some paneling. I think I'm going to start with this regular brown here, see what it looks like. I think this is just a little maybe too red for this sandy color. I'm trying to keep with the same shades of this, a little bit darker. This, like I said, it's too much red, I think. Anyway, Mac was a great anime. Which one? Oh, you're doing this. You have one movie edition. Good. Are you doing Fast Attack or are you doing Cruiser? That's my only question, unless you answered it and I just didn't see it. Heck yeah, it was a good, but English dub was better. No, well, it depends on which one you're talking about. You wish English dub was better. Yeah, English dub was horrible. Because I actually got the old VHS tape of the English dub. It was called Clash of the Binoids, and it was ridiculous. It sounded like it was recorded in a bathroom, echoey and just crap. No, it was like people that weren't watching the film while they were recording their lines. They didn't have any emotion, and it was just horrible. Cruiser mode for, let's see. Cruiser in the ship mode, right? Yeah. Cruiser is the ship mode. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. That's what we have. Cool. That's the one that I made. A couple years ago, I did all the fiber optic. That was my first attempt at fiber optics, and I did that. Added a bunch of LEDs internally and fiber optics. But the photo etch set works great for that, by the way. It fits really, really well. And the bender will work perfectly for it because it's mostly just straight 90-degree bends. You're not doing any complex curves or anything like that. So, yeah. Yep, you got that right. So, anyway, I'm going to get started here. If you got any more questions, put them in the comments. Try to make sure I don't miss any. I'll keep reading as I go. If anybody got anything they want to add, by all means, speak up. And we'll keep going here. I'm going to mix up some of it, or just shake up this straight brown. This is a Tamiya accent line color brown, straight brown, not dark brown, not deep brown, just brown. So I guess we'll just keep going in the back here. I've also got the exhaust grill. I've got some other painted parts here like this. This is the photo etch exhaust grill. I've got that painted and ready to go. Got the machine guns. I got the tan pieces painted on that. I got to do some hand painting for the actual guns themselves using steel, which is number 28, Mr. Color number 28. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of stuff painted up. I'm just going to try out this brown on the top here, see what it looks like. You're going to make me do LEDs on it. Well, of course. I mean, I'll send you pictures of mine, and that'll, hopefully that'll encourage you to try it, or put it back in the box and forget about it. I hope not, but I really hope not. It turned out very well. I mean, I was very happy with it. It was a tough challenge because, again, when you do LEDs or you do fiber optics, especially wiring, you have to re-engineer the way you put it together. You can't just go step by step through the instruction booklet because you've got all these added components that you've got to worry about which wires are going where. I had to put everything in series a certain way. Had to wire it a certain way so it would run off 9-volt batteries. Yeah, it was a challenge, but once you get it figured, it takes you a little while. It takes some thinking. There were days where I just sat there and I would just stare at it, trying to figure out the plan of how it was going to go together. Now, I didn't clear coat this. Okay, now somebody might be asking, especially George might be asking, why didn't you clear coat it when I'm doing this panel line? The paint I used is a semi-gloss paint, so it has enough of a gloss in it that I can do this kind of panel lining without clear coating it. Normally I would gloss coat everything before I do any panel lining. But in this case, because it's a modern tank and I'm going to weather the shit out of it, I'm not too concerned. But also, like I said, there's enough of a finish on this with the semi-gloss paint that I can panel line this and still get the same results without having to seal it first. Normally I would clear coat it and seal it just because it produces better results. But again, if I'm using a flat paint or a type of paint that doesn't have a smooth surface, yeah, you're going to have to clear coat and clear gloss it first before you panel line it. But this is Mr. Color and their lacquers. So the lacquer paints are a lot tougher, and this is enamel wash, so it's not going to attack the surface at all, attack my finishes. In fact, it's going to be just fine. So I'm just adding some color here, and then I'll go back. This brown looks like it's going to work out great. It's just enough to kind of darken everything up, enhance my lines, but it's not so stark a contrast like the black. I think the black would have just been too much. Black's fine for these grills because those are greasy, grimy kind of surfaces, and those deserve to be black. Plus, because when I wipe them off with the Q-tip, I can kind of control how much remains on there, so I can give some kind of, it's almost like a shading effect. Worked out nice. I think this is going to look nice because there's some nice hinges here. It's going to really highlight those without being too drastic. Some of this stuff's going to be hidden under the turret, but what is exposed will look nice. I'll do this in waves. I'll do this in sections here. This once I start getting some of this dried, I can go back and use my Q-tips and start cleaning it up. Now, again, what I use for cleaning up, I use the AK odorless enamel thinner. This stuff is amazing. It's definitely odorless and it works really well. Complex LEDs scare me. I understand you for wiring within a model, but ouch. And you, James King, you and James King are references. Well, that's good. Yeah, you can go deep into my Gundamonium page on Facebook if you so choose, and you can see step-by-step processes of how I did everything for the Macross build when I did that SDA1. There's even a video at the end showing the LEDs lit. I did actually 2 different circuits for that kit because initially I wanted to wire everything, just have it run off a 1 9-volt battery. But what happened was I found out that because I had some blinking lights and some static lights. The blinking lights were blinking at 1 hertz. And of course the static lights didn't blink at all. But the problem I had was when the lights would blink, it was causing the voltage drop, or the changes in that voltage drop were causing my static lights to kind of pulse. They weren't blinking, but they were pulsing, and I didn't want that. So what I had to do was I just separated them, and I put all the blinking lights on one circuit and then all the static lights on another. And that way I didn't have to worry about it. I'm sure there's probably an Arduino or something I could have wired in a controller somehow that would have made it way easier. But I mean, I'm not an expert at LEDs. I tend to dumb it down and do what I want it to do. So to get the desired effect. That's why I did it. It was just simpler that way. It was easier just to separate it into 2 circuits, and that way, I didn't have to do any more thinking about it, because it was a bit of a challenge. I get it, George. LEDs can seem, challenge, scary, and typically, especially because I like the way 9-volt batteries work. They have a lot more power than the small little button 3-volt batteries. They last longer for one, and they can handle a better load. So that's why I typically use 9 volts. So I run all my circuits, especially when I'm doing a LED circuit. I try to run them in series of 3. Because most LEDs run on 3 volts. So if you do them in series of 3, now you've got one circuit or one leg that will run off 9 volts just by putting the LEDs in series, and then paralleling them all together at the end down to 2 wires, which you put a 9-volt battery in basically, and then you're done. So I don't know if you can see this. I haven't cleaned this up yet, but those panel lines look really nice. And they're not super dark. They're just light. They're lit up enough to where it's going to really accentuate those or accent those lines. And then when I add the weathering to this, making it dusty, dirty, it's going to really look nice, I think. So now I'm going to add, this is some photo etch that I added here, so it'll be nice to light those up too. Some of these photo etch handles and hinges that I added to this. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to clean up this section. Now that I've got a section done. So, grab my, these just separate. Pull them apart. Don't need too much. The nice part about this enamel thinner is it works fairly quickly, and the Tamiya stuff, the panel exit lines, they dry relatively quickly. So basically, once you rub this on for a second, you kind of go 2 passes over it. You wet it down with the enamel thinner, and then go back over it, and it will remove that excess once it kind of what you call it, it just kind of loosens it up, and then it sticks to the Q-tip. So yeah, and I'm not oversaturating the Q-tip. I'm just basically getting it damp. I'm going to kind of go over each one of these lines, and then I can come back and touch them up, just wetting them down a little bit. I didn't get too crazy with it either, so there's not a lot of excess to clean up. And I'm not going too crazy either, because there's a lot of little hinges and stuff that can kind of grab the Q-tip and fray a little bit if you go too fast. So I'm just kind of lightly dabbing, loosening it up, and taking away the excess and leaving behind the lines that I want to be. And these have 2 sides to them. One of them's got a pointed side, and the other one's just like a regular standard Q-tip. little round end. So I'll use them both up. When this gets used up, I'll cut it off with my clippers. I got some heavier duty clippers, and I can trim it down. Cut off the end so I'm not handling the a wet Q-tip. But I'll use both sides of it before I toss it. Try to leave as few fibers behind as possible. Some of them do get left behind. It's just the nature of the beast. But when you especially when you're doing your clear coats later on, make sure you try to get all those fibers up before you clear coat. Otherwise, they just end up in your paint, and then you'll see it. You'll definitely see it later. So I have some 135 scale like beer bottles, and I'm not sure what I'm going to put on this thing. I bought some stuff at a trade show a couple of years ago with the intention of using it for something 135 scale. Now that I'm actually doing it, I might pull them out and see where they'll fit in with this project. Especially be careful around the photo etch stuff because it's delicate, and the glue, I try to use a minimal amount of glue so there's not a ton there. So if you're running you snag it with a Q-tip, you can easily break one of these pieces off and have to redo it. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to actually go back over the black here just a little bit to lighten it up. These two grills are actually photo etched, so I'm going to have to go back over and touch these up because the rubbing of the Q-tip is actually taking some of the paint off. As much as you try to, photo etch is kind of temperamental like that. You have to be careful with it because it will flake off even if you prime it first. I mean, they have metal primers that might help for sure. I don't have any of that, so I'm just using my regular Mr. Color primers for everything. So it's okay, but it will flake off if you're not careful. So that looks really good. I'm actually really happy with that brown. I think I'm going to continue using it. This looks good. It's enough to be grimy, but not super dark. And then when I start adding weathering to it, I've also painted these fenders. These flaps are actually rubber in real life. These fender flaps. So those are black, but I'm going to weather them up. It'll make them look a lot better. So I'm going to start continuing on to the front of this. I might actually do the exhaust grill here in black, though, only because there would be a lot more soot, I think, on the back than there will be anywhere else. Anybody else got anything? Any questions? Anybody? No worries. I'm going to keep plugging away here. I think this kit was designed with the intention of actually putting a motorized tread or something in it because there's some holes in the bottom of the hull, which I'm not sure what they're supposed to be for, but it looks like they might actually be mounting points for some kind of little electric motor. I'm not going to make this motorized. Probably never going to lift it up and look at the bottom of it, but you see what I'm talking about? There's holes in the bottom, and they make no sense at all. There's really nothing in the kit that's designed to accommodate those unless you're installing something aftermarket, like I know Tamiya makes little motors for their cars. So I'm wondering if there's something like that you might get for this kit. I don't know. I never researched it. I just noticed it when I was painting it, I flipped it over and I'm like, oh, really? What is this here for? That's following the ocean. Oh, geez, what the hell? Whatever. Oh. Tyler subscribed to my channel. Thanks, Tyler. I thought you already were, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Yeah, I think this brown was a really good choice. Once I do all the wheels, I'll install them and start. I still got to figure out how to paint the tracks, and I'm really not sure how I'm going to do it still. I've been kind of toying with the idea of just because the tracks look kind of metallic, although the pads are rubber, black rubber. So I know that going in, I can paint the black portions and leave the tracks, the rest of the tracks by themselves, which if I didn't weather it would probably be a bad idea. However, because I'm going to be using pigments, sand pigments, and others, I can easily disguise those tracks to look like they've been painted somehow, even if only the rubber pads are the only thing that's actually painted. Normally I would try to paint everything, but it's just one of those odd anomalies with this kit. It's like a polycat material, so I know it's going to be difficult to paint just like anything. But I think I can manage something that will look nice. And because it's going to be a static type thing, I'm not going to be driving this thing around. I know you can use it. The wheels are made to move, but I'm not going to be doing anything like that. And there's also a fair amount of hand painting that's going to have to be done too. Like I got to paint the headlights. I got the brake lights. I got to do some clear red on those, stuff like that. For the meantime, I'm just going to highlight these accents and seal them up maybe this week. And the last step will be to start doing those the hand painting of those details, those fine details of different colors that I need to do. So I actually have some Mr. Color weathering colors as well. This is ground brown, but it's actually quite a bit darker. It's nice stuff. It's actually a little bit thinner than the Tamiya, but it doesn't come with an applicator brush either. So these are good for if you're trying to do larger areas and you got to use your own paintbrush. That's when I pull those out mostly. But with the small stuff, this works just fine. I'm pretty much done with the top of this and let that sit for a second, and then I'll start removing the excess. It's going to take a while to do the whole turret section because there's a lot of little nooks. I got to hand paint the cables. I think they turned out really, really well. You can really see them much. Now they're all the same color, but I think they came out very well. Those cables, I actually twisted the wires myself and then remade them. I'm kind of worried about the two figures because I'm not sure how. There's just a lot of open space in the turret wells and these little hatch wells that they've got to sit in. I just don't want to be able to look in there and see it, see those open areas, but we'll see. I'm sure it'll be all right. And when I add all that stowage, that's going to take up a lot of this empty space back here, but I think the photo etch worked out really, really well. I've got the windows here taped off. Those are masked off so I can paint this or seal it. I've already painted the glass with a clear blue in there. I've got a few more lenses to do, like I said, in the cockpit or the pilot, the driver hatch here. I've got a few lenses I got to put in there. There's also some lenses I got to hand paint around the machine gun turret. Machine gun hatch, I'm sorry. And yeah, little things like that. This is the easy part, was painting the bulk of it. Now it's going to be to the fine details of all that stuff. It takes time. Definitely takes time. I'm not going to see much of this area because it's under the turret, but it's nice to have a little bit of color in those grooves. Even if it's not an actual panel line, it's just kind of like a recess. So there's going to be a little, like these are the body welds, there's going to be a little bit of color in those welds. I'm just dabbing. I don't care much about it being super clean because I know that there would be dirt in those areas. So just kind of dabbing it to get the bulk of it, but leaving a little bit in those recesses to kind of create a shading effect. Just so those areas light up a little bit more than they would otherwise. I also fixed the gaps behind the headlights in this little module. The way the kit was designed, you couldn't get the part close enough to actually mate those two surfaces together, so I had to take a piece of plastic strip and cut some small pieces off and glue them in, so it looks nice now. There's no more gaps. Everyone must be just working away. Nobody's talking. That's all good. Don't get me wrong. It's all good, guys. Got a couple little bits I missed here. I got to go back over. These torsion bars, I want to run some, put some accent on those as well. Because these areas would collect dirt under these bars. So just having a little bit of that color variation between mounting surface. Everybody still hear me okay? I know I had a glitch there earlier. I haven't heard anybody saying it. Nobody's commenting on anything, so I'm just making sure you can all hear me. We're all good. Let me know in the comments. Check it out. Okay, just a little bit of cleanup here, and then we're done with this piece until I install the side skirts. But again, I can't do that until I put all the wheels on. There's just no way to get... I was thinking about maybe trying to put the skirts on first. Shit. I gotta fix something there. I wonder if my enamel wash took the glue off. One of these... Actually, it's okay. One of the torsion bars is loose. I think that's just because of the enamel wash might have loosened it up, because I used a tiny bit of glue there. It's actually holding its position okay, so I think I'm going to leave it alone. Anyway, you guys still hear me okay? Yeah. It's been a few months since I worked on any. Julie's just chiming in. Let me put this on screen. It's been a few minutes since I worked on any kits, so I cleaned my workbench today in hopes that it would motivate me to finish my MG Sniper 2. Yeah, I get it, man. You know, I've been there where there's just like, whether it's burnout or what, sometimes it's sometimes you just gotta take a step back, you know. Totally understand that. I remember when I first came back from Arizona, because I was there for so long dealing with my mother's estate and everything like that. And when I first got back, I just sat here. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get back. I want to get back and do what I used to do. And then I got here, and I just sat here and stared at the bench. I was just like, oh, loud and clear. That's good. I'm glad we're all good. I wasn't sure there. Nobody was talking, so I wasn't sure anybody could hear me okay. I'm pretty sure if I was muted, you guys would say something, but I thought I'd check it anyway. So, yeah, anyway, getting back, Julius, I totally understand. Sometimes you got to take a step back and see what calls to you. Sometimes, I remember I used to pride myself and say, well, I've never not finished a project after I started it. It was like, I've always, whatever I start, I finish, regardless of how long it takes. But there's been a couple of times where I just wasn't feeling it, and I just put it back in the box lately, recently. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I remember I used to, like I said, I used to say, like, oh, I've always finished a project. I never quit. Well, I don't care anymore. I don't care about that. Sometimes if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And I remember when the Zaku Warriors came out, I got the red one, the first red Zaku Warrior. And I had all these plans to put it together with these base kits that I had. And I was going to do the, hanger type setup and had all this stuff ready to go. And I got it together, and I just was like unimpressed. And I ended up putting it away, or not putting the kit away. The kit's still together. I never painted it yet, but I snapped it and I started getting my ideas together. And I just like, this just isn't, I'm just not feeling it. So I put it away, and you know what? I ended up using those base kits for the Valkyrie hanger. That's what it turned into. Loss of mojo sucks. That's right. Loss of mojo sucks. It happens to everybody, though. I think there's certain times where you really, George and I especially, we've talked about this a few times, about as you get older. I don't mean to keep bringing up age, but it's like, I looked at my backlog the other day, and I was kind of thinking, well, it takes me 6 months, or roughly 6 months or whatever, to finish a kit. And I start counting the numbers in my backlog, and I'm like, I'm not going to be alive to finish all these kits. I got to start figuring out what I want to build, what I want to finish, and then either sell off the rest, or give it to friends, or what, or start doing the ones that, start prioritizing what I'm going to do. I think that's the funny part. But I totally get I totally understand, And sometimes you just don't feel it. You're just sitting there, you kind of just stare at the bench and you go, well, shit, you got to give it some time, and eventually you get that mojo back and you start moving forward again. Got a little bit I missed over here. There's actually like a panel line that runs across this back edge. It's really hard to see, but it's there. So I just want to make sure I highlight that, and then I'll move to the back. I still got to do all of the suspension brackets and stuff in the wheel, these little idler wheels that are here along the side as well, before I can all that. But again, there's going to be a lot of dirt and stuff kind of packed in there. I think once I get to the point where I'm starting to weather this, I'm going to use a lot of pigments, dry pigments, with a brush, and apply those with a paintbrush. But my idea was to put this on, kind of like a vignette, put it on a plaque of wood, make it look like it's in a desert environment, but transitioning from dirt to pavement, dirt to asphalt, and have a little bit of that dirt kind of blowing out as it's going across that kind of a desert type desert feel. So we'll see. Okay, this is looking good. I guess I'm going to start on the sides before, because since I'll do the sides in brown. Love hanging in black log, even if I know I won't build all of it. Yeah, it's the dream of what I want to do, each one that is exciting. Yeah, you're right, George. And I feel the same way. I've got a bunch of stuff in the backlog, and I heard you talking this morning about not buying stuff. We don't buy as many kits as we used to, because we buy only what we really think that we don't need to have it just because it's a new kit. You buy it because you want to. You might actually build it, and you might not, but it's not like before where it was just like, oh, I got to buy this kit. This is the newest master grade. I am kind of interested in that Dendrobium that you were talking about, especially if they're going to re-release that, but only because I know somebody in Japan that might be able to get a hold of one if it is a P-Bandai only kind of thing. So, but that's another story for another time. All right, back to panel lining here. Let me shake this up again. I'm going to go back to and do the sides now. This Q-tip's almost worn out. I like this enamel thinner too, because it doesn't chew up my board. If I get a little bit on it, it just evaporates away. It's good stuff. I've got a nasty hair right here. It's one thing that happens occasionally when you're airbrushing. Once you get hairs in the paint, but it's mostly cleaned up. These are rivets and stuff primarily. Let me move this up a little bit here so we can see what's going on. There's a lot of bolts. Kind of make up these little bolt heads that make up these suspension components. So it's a nice detail to highlight. But it'll be dirtied up and mucked up, and I'm not going to see a lot of it because it will be covered up by the skirts or and the wheels and everything else that's going to be attached. But it's necessary to do these panel lines to highlight those areas so what you do see is worth it. I don't expect anybody to pick this thing up either and flip it over, so I'm not too worried about the bottom, but at least I want to make sure that the sides, anything from the sides, are visible. HG Gendrobium, yeah, I know. It's like one of those things. It's like, do I really want one? Am I going to build it? The last time I actually bought, actually, I didn't buy it. I worked on a friend's car, did some work for him, and he paid me with a GPO, PG GPO1, or the GPO2, was it? I can't remember which one it was. It was the PG one, the full burner. So that was his payment, and I had it for years, and I expect, one of these days I'm going to build this thing, and I never did. Well, you know who ended up selling it to Brian Denclaw, Bro Builder. He bought it. But it was one of those times where I was like, yeah, you know what? I got some medical bills. I got to pay for this. And he even said, you can always buy it back. And I'm sure he would definitely sell it back to me. But it's just not on my radar anymore, So I'm like, well, I'm not really overly concerned about it. Rumor is limited release, like a pre-order. Huh. Limited release, huh? Well, that means it'll probably be gone before. I mean, I could talk to Ryan. I got a friend in Japan still who might be able to get his hands on one. But he would have to not be working that day and have to be able to get in the store or order it. Like you're saying, pre-order it before it disappears. I don't know. I don't think it, to be honest, I got to be honest with myself, I probably don't need one. I will probably never build it. Just seems like more and more the Gundam kits are, I don't know, they're less and less excited about them. I don't know. I don't know what it is. This lately I've been doing maybe more macro stuff or whatever it is, but I just I do like the YOLO Park stuff. In fact, I found out they're coming out with Bumblebee, which might be a nice kit to get. Shockwave looks nice. It's never about need. Yeah, you know what I mean. Same thing. Nobody really needs it. It's just what we want to have. Nobody really needs it, George. Oops. I'm going to shake this up. As this stuff sits, it tends to start losing its pigment. Most of my recent interests have been, let me put this on screen. Most of my interests have been in armor and other anime. Like Gunhead. Oh, Gunhead. I forgot about Gunhead. Gallant, and of course, old Macross. Yeah, me too. It just, I don't know, maybe there's just so many similarities in the Gundam kits, that have been coming out, that there's just not enough, I don't know, maybe not enough variety in what, in the differences, to where I look at a Gundam kit and I just go, wow, that's so much different and more exciting, or whatever. I need to go buy it, or whatever. I mean, granted, most of the macro stuff that I have is DYRL, do you remember love type stuff. I don't have a lot of the newer Valkyrie stuff, Valkyrie kits, but I am interested to build that one from Max Factory, because it, hopefully the fit is good. It looks like they really just scaled down the 120 to a 172, which makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if you had the fighter version in 120, you could actually take all the parts, off the runners and compare them. They would look identical, just a smaller scale because it's 172. But looks like they did, put some thought into it, at least to the way it's engineered to go together. All right, I got all the, oops, I missed that wheel. Thought I had everything done here, but I got one more wheel to do. So once I get these panel lines, I think I might actually start installing the wheels. Then I can actually panel line those as well. Except for Origin, nothing screams by me. I don't care for IBO or the Witch models. Yeah, I haven't even seen much of the Witch models, to be quite honest. Who's 504? The internet is being funky, but I made it. Well, good to have you, man. I don't know. Do I know you? I mean, have we met before? Good to have you, 504. It's Kogigan. I don't know how to say that. I'm from the group. Oh, which group? AmFam? The AmFam group? Or Washington State Gunpla? You tell me. Good to have you, man. It's good to see new faces. Good to see old faces. It's good to see everybody. Just happy to be here. Where are we at? 7:04. We got time. We're doing good. Oh, you asked, you sure I'm fam. Okay, yeah, you were asking me where I'm streaming. Well, good. You're on Twitch. Nice to see you, buddy. I don't get a ton of Twitch people, only because Twitch seems to be more of a gamer type streaming service. I think it's starting to grow into the artist market a little bit, but I know that a lot of the people that go on, oh, you're doing the Corsair now. Yeah, I know who you are, but that's awesome. I love that Corsair you're doing. I love that plane. I mean, just the Corsair. I think growing up in the 80s when we watched, Black Sheep Squadron and all that shit, old faces. No disrespect, George. Just growing up in the 80s with Black Sheep Squadron and everything, I love the Corsair. That was really where I got my first exposure to that aircraft. And I'm sure some of the old faces in the room would agree. Right, George? So, all right, now that I got both sides of these panel line, I'm going to go and clean them up. So I'm going to start with the right-hand side again here. Now this side's all dry enough. because of all these little hexagonal bolt heads that are on everything, I got to be careful because it will snag the the Q-tip and fray it quite easily if I'm not. So mostly what I'm doing is just dabbing, not a lot of wiping back and forth. Cut down on the abuse it to my applicator tool here. Have you seen the movie Devotion? Good film with excellent aerial photography. Does it use the Corsair in that, George? Well, if George is over here, might as well join over here. Oh, okay. So now you're on YouTube. Well, you do whatever you want, man. It's all good. All it does is help out the algorithm. It doesn't matter, I guess, where you hang out at. I'm sure I need a few more Twitch followers anyway to balance out the YouTube and the Facebook followers, but doesn't matter to me. I'm just I use StreamYard because I can stream on three different services at once. So those are the three that I had access to. There are more, but I don't use some of the others. So Twitch was my third option, and that's what I picked, even though it's not the most popular for builders. Well, at least for me anyway. I get more people that watch me on Facebook and YouTube, so that's fine. Yeah, Twitch seems to be a downward spiral. Oh, hope not, but at any rate, yeah, the stronger platforms will survive. I've got some friends on Twitch as well, and they do building as well. Maybe I'm in the wrong demographic because I think at the time they didn't have, you couldn't pick, you had to pick artist or something like that. You couldn't pick I think you had to do like creator or something like that, and maybe go under a creator study because you're creating artwork or whatever. I don't know. Doesn't matter, I suppose. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like the way those are lighting up. Come on, focus, you piece of. Try not to drop this damn thing at the same time. So if we can get those in the right light, yeah, there we go. It lights up well, and that's not using black. It's actually just using the brown. The brown seems to light up quite nicely against this tan color. So. Maybe a little bit. There's a new streaming service that started up this year as well on Kick. It's called Kick. Devotion Head Corsair, correct. Okay. Cool. No, I have not seen that movie, but I would say that it's probably because I haven't seen a lot of movies with aircraft in them, like, you know, that type of World War or after World War II or whatever. I'm not sure what era is the Corsair in. It could be just grabbing at straws. Devotion and Corsair, yeah, correct. I was wondering what you were doing with the Q-tip. Oh, I'm cleaning up these panel lines. So I'm using enamel. This is all the Tamiya panel line accent colors are enamel based. This is a odorless enamel thinner from AK, which I prefer to use. It works really well, and it is definitely odorless. It does not run you out of the room. And I'm just I'm using the Q-tip to take up the excess of what's left. It actually softens up once the enamel the panel line paint dries, the thinner will reactivate it to the point where I can wipe off the excess, so all I have left is the lights up the panel lines that I want, like that. So that's one side. I'm going to do the other side, but I think I'm going to need to, I might get a little bit more out of this. This Q-tip's getting beat up, but it's only because of all those little those little bolt heads that are molded into this. You have to dab it more than you can rub it, because when you do, it just chews up the end of this thing. And then I'll start leaving fibers on it, which will show up in my clear coats and everything else. So I'm trying to minimize the amount of fibers left behind by doing that. I've got a few more dabs back here. There we go. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, man. You ought to know this if you're doing if you're doing panel lining on your Gundam kits. This is how you clean them up. You can use any enamel thinner. I've seen some people even use lighter fluid, but you have to be careful with lighter fluid, because it will, if you use it in excess, it will make your plastic very brittle, which can cause problems. We were talking about filter washes earlier, and I did use enamel filter washes on some real grade kits that I was doing when I did a city diorama years ago. That was in 13 or 15. Now I can't even remember. I think it was 15. But anyway, I had a piece of armor on one of the Zaku's just snap right off, because of the enamel, or the lighter fluid just made the plastic brittle. So you have to be very careful. Use it sparingly, and make sure you don't soak it so much that it goes into the joints, like the inner frame of your kit, because if it gets inside, that's when it starts deteriorating that, the plastic. Next thing you know, you go to move something, posing it or whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, it just breaks right off in your hands, and you're like, what the hell just happened? A lighter fluid and a spark will make a great picture for like 5 seconds. Yeah, you're right. It will definitely make for an exciting moment for a very, very short time. Now, I just bought a little can of Zippo. It's around here somewhere. I don't know where it's at the moment. It's probably on my in my supply shelf. But yeah, I only busted that out when I was using doing the filter washes using enamel paint. And you do that over lacquer. So what I did is I sealed the lacquers with a gloss coat, and then you can take the enamel paints and put little dots all over it, depending on what colors you want to use, what kind of muddied up color you're trying to create, and then use the lighter fluid to blend everything together and smooth it out, and then it just looks like a weathered, dirty piece of whatever it is you're doing. I was doing the armor on all of the Zaku kits. I had 2 real grade Zakus and 1 RX-78, and I did that. I used that filter wash to weather. That was one of the weathering steps I used on those initially, and that was after I did panel lining and everything else. I didn't do a ton of weathering on top of that. That was pretty much just what I wanted to make it look like it'd been in the field for a while. That model sounds very Banksy. What does that mean? Oh, a lit model? You mean with lighter fluid, George? Yeah, I'm not sure anybody wants to light their shit on fire. I'm just saying. That might just be me, but I guess the trick is don't be lighting candles around your kit when you're trying to do an enamel filter wash. You'll be okay. All right, so I got both sides of the all the wheel wells done. I still have the back to do and the front. So I'm going to take a few more minutes here to put some more of this brown on, and then I'll go to black because I'm going to do the exhaust back there in black. Some of the other parts of the back will be done in this brown, but the exhaust itself will be in black. I want that sooty kind of look because I've also got to cover. Once I do that, I can cover it up. This is going to go on over the top of it, so I got to panel line all that first before I can actually glue that grill on in back. So this is just a little bit left in front here. Yeah, there we go. Whoa, that was close. Also, I have to always keep in mind where the photo etch is and where it is, because when I'm moving this thing around, if I grab it the wrong way or hit something, I can knock a piece off that easily. So I got to be careful. We got the toe hook back here, which can be done in brown. That's going to be mostly covered. So I've got the auxiliary battery or maybe power supply on one side of the back here, which will cover up a lot of this. But this tail light on this side is exposed. So this will have some hand painting done too, because I've got the tail lights I got to paint. I'm also going to have to touch this up when I put the side skirts on, because there's going to be a seam that I have to address. So I'm kind of, this is a little bit counterproductive, only because I know I'm going to have to touch this up a little bit in the back when I get to the point where I put those side skirts on, because there's just a little bit, there's a tab here that's going to be a seam. So we'll fix that, but that's minor. I can do that pretty easily. All right, almost there. Just a few more of the brown edges here, and then I will switch over to the black for the remainder. This is if I'm not mistaken, it's a turbine engine used on these tanks. It's one of the first tanks to be made with the turbine engine. And they belch out quite a bit of exhaust, especially being a diesel. I'm pretty sure. I think it's diesel, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on these tanks by any means. Okay, that's all the brown that we're going to use on the back. Let my thirst a little bit. All right, now we're going to switch over to black. So even I think even Ken I talked to about this when he was talking about using panel line colors. And for those that don't know, if you're using this, if you decide you're not going to paint your kit and you just want to use the panel line, you got to be very, very careful. It's almost like what I was talking about earlier with lighter fluid. This, to me, a panel line color can be aggressive, especially against bare plastic. So if you're doing panel lining to a bare, plastic kit without paint, gosh, be super careful about the amount that you're applying to it, because it can and it will be very brittle, make your plastic very brittle. You end up breaking stuff. So I don't recommend using it. You can, but it's far better if you paint your kits first before you use it, I would say. Just to have those added layers of protection between the plastic and this product. So far so good. And we're just putting some of this. This is the actual exhaust grill here. And I'm just there's a lot of little nooks, so I'm just kind of liberally applying it here. I wouldn't probably use this much normally, but because it's the exhaust, I expect it to be darker. Have a little bit more. Okay, so we'll let that dry for a second. Well, actually, I can probably start on another section. So as I go, I've already done this. The brown that I put on here earlier is already dry. So I'm going to do that first, and then by the time I get back to the black, it should be ready to go. All right. And I do have some photo etch pieces here, so I do have to be careful about knocking into one of these pieces of photo etch and knocking it off, because some of this stuff is glued down on a surface. It's in order to make it look right, you have to use just the most minimal amount of glue to secure it, but also not make it obvious, because you don't want a big dab of glue sitting there. So I have to be careful. If I knock one of them off, you might hear me cuss a little bit here, but whatever. Everything's fixable. Just getting a little bit of this. Trying not to oversaturate my Q-tip. Just trying to get enough that I can take off the excess without leaving a bunch of thinner behind. Although this thinner won't do anything. It's not like the accent color is really what causes all the problems if you overdo it, especially on an unpainted kit. But and what I'm doing is, it looks like I'm just kind of randomly dabbing. I'm wetting those panel lines down again with the Q-tip, and then giving it a second or two, and what that does is reactivate it, and then I can wipe it off when it's dry, just by hitting it with a little bit of that thinner, giving it a couple of seconds. it will then wipe off and clean it up nicely. I don't need to worry too much about that taillight because that one's covered up with the auxiliary unit. So I'm just going to go over this. And I'll be ready for the exhaust grill. Oh yeah. There we go. Getting there. About 4 minutes left. Almost done. I'm going to get this grill portion done here, and then we'll probably call it for another episode of, this is part 6 of this Tamiya 135 scale M1A1 Abrams tank build. Now I'm moving on to the black here on the exhaust grill. Just going to wet this down, and then I'll be able to wipe off my excess. Yeah, that looks good. Here's one of those instances where I don't mind if there's a little extra fluid because it's got to get into those grooves and it will eventually evaporate away. So I'm not too overly concerned about that. What I really want to do is just get enough of it in there that it cleans up the fins, leaves the accent color in the grooves, but cleans up those fins enough where it kind of gives it a dirty weathered mucky kind of look to it. Yeah, I like that. Looks good. And the colors are crisp right now. Of course, once I start the weathering process and add some dust and pigment to this. The pigments are dry pigments that I use, and I apply them with a brush. They're actually very intense colors, and they're powders, really, really fine powders. But you'd be surprised how well that stuff looks. And it creates such a realistic looking dusty effect. It's really amazing, to be quite honest. I like using it. All right. So there we go, folks. The main body of this is essentially done with panel lining. I might have to make a few little touch-ups here and there. In fact, I see a couple up front here that I can hit real quick. This is what the brown that I left in the front. I did not do these little tabs. I hit them with panel line color, but I didn't go back over them with the Q-tip, so that's good. That's done. This is looking nice back here. And the nice thing about this, these enamel washes, if you do miss something and you leave it on for a day, it will still come off. It might take a little bit longer you got to put some of the enamel thinner on there and let it sit for a minute, but it will loosen it up. So in case you do end up missing a section, you're like, holy crap, I got this big blob of panel line color I got to get rid of. You can still get rid of it. It just takes a little longer for it to loosen up. But anyway, folks, that's where we're at right now. I'm going to continue doing the panel line colors this week. Hopefully next week we'll get ready for weathering. We'll start putting this kit together. I still got to figure out how to paint these damn tracks. but I may have to do a bunch of hand painting and just individually paint these rubber pads one at a time. It's going to take forever, but that might just be the way to do it. And then when I flat coat everything, it will, because I think these original treads were metal, mostly metal, with the rubber pads kind of impregnated into the, or because I think they're molded in with the tracks themselves. It's just a matter of how can I paint the damn things without all that shit flaking off. So I got to figure that out. But I may just use some spray them down with some adhesion promoter, and that will help the paint stick quite a bit, especially to this rubberized type stuff. So thanks, George. I appreciate that. So is your Valkyrie. Your Valkyrie's looking great. Have fun using that photo etch bender. I think it'll come in great use. I used the same one for the SDF1 build, so I think you'll be fine with yours. Yeah, it really adds quite a nice bit of detail, especially to the SDF1. That was a very good kit. If you bought the Hasegawa one, the Hasegawa photo etch set, I'm assuming that's the one you got. I'm pretty sure that's the only one available. But that one, they really did a job. It's really well made. They did a very good job of making that kit, that photo etch set. So, anyhow, we'll talk to you guys next week. Excuse me. What if you heat the metal part and dip it in oil? Dip it in oil. What are you referring to? Oh, you mean the tracks? Is that what you're talking about, Ken? I'm going to answer this question before we leave, but yep, Hasegawa, good. Yeah, you got the good one. What if you heat the metal part and dip it in oil? Not quite sure what you mean, Ken. The tracks are a rubberized material, so there's no way for me. I'm not going to heat it. That would cause other issues, so there's no real way to do that. I'm just talking about painting it. I have adhesion promoter that I've used in the past, and it works very well. It just stinks. You have to spray it with if you have a very good spray booth. No, these are rubber. They're not metal. You have to have a very good spray booth with very good exhaust, because it's really strong stuff. It works brilliantly with this type of thing, especially if you're painting like polycap type stuff. It works very well. But yeah, so that might be my only option. Again, you're going to see the inside of these tracks. I'm not sure how much of it I'm going to paint with that. I might just have to paint each one of these rubber pads black and call it at that, but we'll see. I never really researched to see if there was any other track options for this kit. That's the only thing I didn't. I'm really not interested in building plastic tracks for it. I know a lot of the Dragon kits come with plastic tracks. The Dragon model, if you buy the smart kits for 135 or maybe even smaller scale, but I know a lot of their 135 scale kits have plastic tracks in them. If you buy the smart kit, it'll say, it's a Dragon model tank, but it'll say smart kit on it. And if it's the smart kit, it usually comes with photo etch and maybe even a metal barrel. It comes with some extra options that in the box that you don't normally get if you buy the regular one, but which is cool. This, unfortunately, does not have that. So there might be some third-party stuff out there that I haven't really found or haven't looked for. I'm not really interested in finding it, so I'm just going to have to figure out how to paint these things. And doing that on camera is going to be quite boring, so I'm going to have to figure out how to paint this stuff, by the time we see each other next week. So anyway, thanks everyone for coming in. Thanks everyone for chatting tonight. It's been fun. I'm going to keep working on this week and see where we're at for next week's broadcast, and we'll go from there. I think hopefully I'll be done with all the panel lining and maybe start some of the hand painting details. I know I have to mask off these hatches because I still got to paint the inside with that green color. But other than that, this is pretty much the scheme that's going to be. There's not a whole lot of other colors that have to go in. Just the inside of the hatches have kind of a green color to them, and then we'll start weathering. And that will really start making this thing pop when I get to weathering stage. Start adding some dirt, grime, and oil leaks, rust, water streaking, all sorts of things. There's a lot of options I have at my disposal there. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks again, Ken. Have a good night, you too. George, thanks again so much for joining in and seeing me tonight. And we'll see you tomorrow morning, your 6 a.m. live stream. For everyone else, again, thanks for coming in. It's been awesome. We'll catch you on the flip side. See you next week. Talk to you soon.